Hello from Alicante, where an awful lot has happened overnight and an awful big decision has been made with the ice limit. More on that later. We're going to be speaking to Simon Fisher, navigator of Vestas 11th Hour Racing, plus hearing from Bruno Dubois, manager of Dongfeng Race Team. Also, we've got race expert Peter Tans joining us live. You can put in your questions if you have any burning ones that need answers. He's going to be talking to us about jibes and who's making the best of the ice limit as it stands. First of all, let's take a look at the tracker. Let's see how the race is unfolding right now. The front has rolled over and this has really squeezed the racing in, down, tight, close to the ice limit. Sun Hunkai Scallywag, they have been the first to jibe at the back of the field, but look at what's happening at the front right now. Mafre, very far south, really pushing it all the way down, trying to sail the shortest distance, but there's nothing in it. One jibe, Dongfeng Race Team take the lead, then back with Mafre, but the fleet are so close together, it is constantly changing round. Too difficult here to say who is in the lead at all. As we roll forward, if we take a look at the predicted routing, we know that the breeze is going to hit. We know that it's going to get fruity. But right now, well, at least according to Simon Fisher on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing, conditions aren't too bad.
Well, I guess we've had a gentle start to bouncing down the ice gate. So yesterday we got pretty close. I think we got within about just under half a mile with Dongfeng and Mafre less than a mile from us as well. So it was pretty close racing. But we had a bit of a reprieve last night, sailing along on port jibe away from the ice gate. But now that we've had a front go through this afternoon, and now that front's gone through, then we're into steadily building westerly winds, and yeah, as it goes more westerly, then the inevitable bouncing down the ice gate game begins. So we've done one jibe off the ice gate so far, and I can see at least 3 other boats just peering over this laptop onto the computer screen. I can see 3 other boats on the AIS, and yeah, this night's going to be, and into tomorrow's going to be all about jibing down the ice gate.
Oh, well, let's look forward in time then, because a large chunk of the ice limit has been taken out. How does that affect your game plan?
Oh, it's always nice actually. I guess it's sort of opened up the race course a bit. For sure, probably some of the ice gate that's moved south will just end up jibing down that. But there's quite a lot of strong weather in our not too distant future. And there's a big zone of strong westerly pressure, and there's sort of lows coming from the north and troughs coming up from the south, and all that sort of feels to make quite a lot of westerly. So having a bit of an escape room if the weather does get bad is a good thing. So I think the racing committee made a nice decision there, and it's nice if we're a little bit freer. It's a little bit less stressful when it's 35 knots, so you have to jibe every couple of hours.
Well, talk to me about the conditions, because I've heard all sorts of numbers from across the fleet. I've heard 60 knots, I've heard 20 knots. What's your appraisal of what's to come?
Try not to split the herd at the moment. I mean, I think we're going to see some steady 35s, and if there's 35s, then we can expect gusts into the 40s for sure. Not seeing anything sort of sustained over 35 at the moment, and actually the last one of the models were a little less ferocious than some of the earlier ones, but for sure, we're going to have some big breeze and some big waves in the latest wave forecast. There's some 8 metre waves, certainly not insignificant. So we're sort of quietly hoping that with a few more runs of the forecast, it'll look a little less extreme. But I think you've got to plan for the worst and hope for the best. Is probably a good strategy.
The forecast is looking pretty bad in terms of the breeze. A lot of sailors at home would have sailed in those kind of conditions, but the sea state, the waves are looking really ferocious. And I'm guessing that the waves are more of a problem, more of a challenge than the wind.
Yeah, sort of looking at the latest wave models, there's definitely some sort of big seas forecast up to 8 metres, which is pretty substantial. And often the sea state is the limiting factor in how fast you can go in these boats. If it's a big, long period swell, which is sort of pretty unique to the Southern Ocean, it can create some fantastic sailing conditions and kind of sailing that you only ever experience while you are down here. But the problem is if those waves are big and short and really close together, then you spend most of the time sort of ploughing down the mine. It's very hard to keep the boat up and going, and you get some big accelerations, and then a very sudden stop, which is a lot of load on the gear, and it's pretty unpleasant. It actually slows you down and makes things pretty difficult. So we'll have to sort of monitor that closely as it comes, and by all accounts, the sea state could be the limiting factor in our in our boat speed as we go across it. It's also very true that with these boats, we don't really need much more than 35 knots of wind to go at maximum speed. Anything more than that actually makes things harder, and part of that is the sea state that you get in that moment. So often we'll try and avoid the worst of the wind, but when you're down here in the Southern Ocean and it's the sort of end of March, sort of getting into autumn, then that's not always an option. So just have to make the most of what we get.
Simon Vischer on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing. So the ice limit being a key thing, as always, with the Southern Ocean. But you may have noticed a rather large piece of it has gone. In fact, race management team elected to remove a huge chunk, twice the size of New Zealand. Now, only a few hours ago, this area was considered incredibly dangerous and the boats weren't to go in there. But due to the storm, due to some safety considerations, it's been taken out to give the boat a little bit more wriggle room. Now, more on that and exactly what goes into the thought process tomorrow with Gonzalo Infante, the Chief Meteorological Officer. He'll be on the show talking to us about it then. In the meantime, Bruno Dubois, the manager of Dongfeng Race Team, knows only too well how quickly things can go wrong on this leg and how much you've got to prepare for the worst.
Physically, you're in good shape, you've got a good team spirit, but let's talk about the mental preparation. In the last race, Dongfeng Race Team dropped their rig, and indeed in the race before that as well, Charles Coudrier was a team member on Groupama Race Team, and they broke their rig just after Cape Horn when they were heading northwards again. So that's 2 for 2. Is that something that weighs on his mind?
No, there's one more thing, is that Pascal Bidégory sailed twice this race and he never managed to pass Cape Horn.
Oh, so fantastic. You're giving your team a pat on the back there.
we have a challenge.
It's a dream, but it can be a nightmare sometimes. But we are ready. Dongfeng Race Team is ready for it. We can't also forget that last race we broke the mast during this leg, and this is probably one of the legs where you have to think sometime, okay, forget the race and just keep your crew and your boat in good condition, because it can be dangerous, of course. So you have to make a choice, a balance between performance and safety, and it's not easy.
The fleet is currently in ideal conditions, isn't it? So they're in the prefrontal zone. There's a big monster chasing them down.
They've been lucky, honestly, since they start on Sunday. I think they have a perfect weather. I think the water is not that cold yet, even if they are really south. That's a good news. It's sunny. They can push the boat. That's very good. Now there is a big front coming back on them soon. I think in the next 24 hours. The problem is not really the wind. The problem is that the wind going to be really from the west, and they're going east, so they're going to have to start jibing along the ice gate, the ice limit. And if you go north, you're going to lose miles. And I don't know if the boats or the guys will be keen to go north just to escape that wind. And then after that, you will arrive in Cape Horn, and there is a system building up right now. And when we look at the system, I think the worst is not coming in now. The worst is going to be when they pass close to Cape Horn. That's what I'm worried about. I think Charles worry about that too, because that's going to be a tricky one to deal with. But, they cannot go south because there's ice limit, and they cannot go north really because they're going to lose miles. So the idea is to keep the boat in one piece, keep the people in one piece, and try to push as much as they can. But at one moment, I think they may have to slow down and just be careful. But if you slow down too much, the system going to come back on you, and it's going to be even worse. So you need to do a mix of everything, and I think the best boat will be in the front.
So some key decisions facing all the teams. Now, we couldn't really resist taking the opportunity while we had Bruno Dubois on the line to connect him with the boat, and he spoke to navigator Pascal Bidégory and just whiled away the time while the boat was out there in the Southern Ocean.
Et est-ce que vous avez trouvé les chocolats de Marie aujourd'hui?
Le chocolat de Marie dans la...
Dans ta table à cartes, je pense, ou pas loin de ta table à cartes.
Le chocolat de Marie qui fait... ouais, j'ai vu les chocolats l'autre jour là, dans le truc là. Mais je l'ai dit à personne pour l'instant, je les mange en loose day quoi.
C'est bien, profites-en.
J'ai vu que j'avais des bons becs aussi derrière là tout à l'heure là. J'ai vu des trucs là, je les ai posés dans la cuisine.
Comment va le moral à bord? Tout va bien? Les équipiers vont bien?
Non, tout va bien. Ouais, tout va bien. Écoute, ça bosse bien. Et bonne ambiance et puis voilà quoi, tout le monde est bien concentré sur ce qu'on fait. Putain, il y a un peu de l'eau sur le pont du bateau et c'est vite, tu te fais vite embarquer. Toi là on vient de faire un peeling là et c'est incroyable quoi. Même si tu lèves le pied, par moment c'est compliqué quoi.
Bon écoute, je vais te laisser Pascal, passe une bonne nuit là, puis travaillez bien, puis on se reparle très bientôt.
Ok, avec plaisir Bruno. Ouais, la bise à tout le monde hein.
Bruno de Bras and Pascal de Biggery. Now, onto the jibes and onto what will surely be the deciding factors over the next few days. We know that the boat's going to be pushing it as far south as they possibly can to keep the distance small, but how many jibes do you do? How hard do you push the team? How much is energy an important factor? Well, this was Simon Fisher's response on Vestas 11th Hour Racing.
You're trying to sort of not run everyone into the ground immediately, but if a good enough shift comes, then yeah, you've got to scramble and get back on the other jibe. So, you know, look at maybe doing half an hour on the short. Luckily, at the moment, there's a long jibe and a short jibe. Currently on starboard tack's a long jibe, and we're just about paralleling the ice gate, which is probably a joy to anyone who's listening in the background. But yeah, so we have a long one and a short one, and it's just working out how short we make that short one to make the long one sort of worthwhile and give everyone a bit of rest. And the other thing that you've got to consider is actually setting up for a jibe with these boats when you've got to move sails and stack and all the internal stacking is actually when you're moving all that stuff around, you're not going at maximum speed, so you've really got to balance, you know, the cost of jibing versus being in the right place, whether it's close to the ice gate for more wind or jibing on the ship. It's all a delicate balance that has to sort of all pieced together quite carefully.
Simon Fisher on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing, and I've got Peter Tans, race expert, to help me understand a little bit about what was going on there. We're talking about the jibes. This is the key moment in this leg. We knew it was going to happen. It happened in the last time in the Southern Ocean. Multiple jibes to keep the boats close to the limit, down south, and basically sail the shortest distance. Now, Peter, when we came into work this morning, we noticed something a little bit interesting. So what I want to do, let's have a little look at the tracker here. This was a moment that happened earlier on today, and a little bit of a shift, a little bit of a header for some of these teams. Just talk about the ramifications.
Yeah, well, if you, like we see here with Dongfeng having a header on EXO as well, if you have that, you can do one jibe to go to the next exclusion zone waypoint. And that'd be great, of course.
Of course, that'd be great, but I'm sensing a little bit of trepidation in your voice because we were sort of surprised to see that shift coming in. Yes. So, you know, how risky is it to believe that shift is going to stay? I mean, how fragile is that course?
Well, it is very fragile, of course. If you have like a 5-degree wind shift, a lift, you're looking at 4 to 5 jibes towards the end of the next waypoint. If you have a 20-degree shift, you're ending up with 9 or 10 jibes in that period.
Okay, so 9 or 10 jibes, I mean, that could be a huge difference considering that at this point, certainly in the day, when we first looked at the tracker, the teams were thinking, oh, we'll be fine. 0 jibes, not a problem at all. So let's just a little bit talk about the jibes then. Potentially, you've got to do 9 jibes to get to the next corner. How long does it take to do a jibe? On a good day, a good team?
Perfect, it would be 15 minutes for a jibe. But as soon as you have nighttime, you get waves, it will take longer. It can take up to an hour. I've had it happen when I did it that we had to wait for a decent surf for an hour. Of course, these boats surf a lot better, so it wouldn't, but ideally 15, let's say.
Okay, so we'll be kind to them. We'll be kind to the sailors and we'll say that these jibes are going to take 15 minutes to do. But then, of course, that's the physical action of jibing and stacking and pulling everything around. But then you're in your bunk, you've been resting, Lord knows you need it, you've got to get ready.
Yes, so getting ready will take about 5 to 10 minutes to get your gear on and then get on deck and do all the work, and then maybe 5 or 10 minutes to go back to bed after you've done your work. So that's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. Okay, so let's start playing around a little bit of numbers here. Let's see how big the effect of this could be. Let's say 15 minutes to do the jibe. Let's say 20 minutes to get ready. And then let's be kind, 5 minutes just to rip off all of your kit as well. So it's going to be 30-minute per jibe. You've got potentially, if a small shift comes in, 9 more jibes to do. I mean, that's 5 hours.
That's 5 hours.
And that's 5 hours where you're not focusing on the speed and you're not focusing on eating. You're not resting.
Yes. Yeah. That's the forecast is that it's going to be, the wind's going to shift, it's going to lift, so they're going to do those 8-9 jibes before they get to the next waypoint. It is going to happen.
Okay, well, let's just take a little bit of a look, because obviously when we came in this morning, we had a little look at the tracker. When we noticed things, there was the chance of no jibes. There was the hope that maybe this was going to be it and it was just going to be a case. But let's roll forward and see what happened. Did the header stay? Well, no, it didn't, and we knew it wasn't going to do it. Life is just not that kind. Mafre put in the 2 jibes. Team Brunel follow. Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Team Axonabel. The jibes have started, and we are now in to this big jibathon all the way down the ice limit. And I mean, I'm guessing the sailors here, you're going to go to bed, you're going to go into your bunk, and you're going to be thinking, okay, we might have to do a few jibes. What, a 10 degree, a 15 degree, a 20 degree shift, and suddenly you're not going to get any rest.
Yes, and that's what's going to happen.
And that's going to be pretty hard for all of these teams. Well, that's what's at stake. We know that there is some big breeze coming. The conditions are going to worsen, so they're going to be wanting to keep their energy as well rested as possible. So spare a little bit of a thought for just how hard it is for these sailors. I mean, I'm guessing they're going to be pushing for that extra 20 to 30 seconds in their bunk if they can find it.
Oh, yes, they will.
All right.
Or sleep in the bunks with the gear on.
Yeah, just get everything wet.
Yes.
Okay, well, listen, Peter Towns is here. We've only got a few more minutes before the show has to come to an end, but we have had some questions in. You have got time to send in some more questions if you haven't done so already. So, Peter, let's just fire through a couple of little things here. First of all, we've had some questions here about the ice exclusion zone, the limit, basically, how far they can go south. A few people have been asking, but Pierre Millsy asked, what happens if a boat crosses the ice limit? Do they get a penalty? Probably the best thing there is Gonzalo Infante, the Chief Meteorological Officer, and your boss, I should say. He's going to come in on the show tomorrow, and he'll be able to give all the lowdown as to why that decision was made and everything else. So let's just talk about this one. We had this question. Paul Goldshag asked yesterday, can you please tell us a little bit more about the frantic cracking that happens on so many of the boats? I know it's something to do with the trimming and adjusting of the sails, but why is there so much of this noise going on?
Well, if you have like the Jenica sheet, there's about 5 tons, 6 tons on the winch on that. The runner is about 8 tons on the winch. So as soon as you ease that, and it's a carbon boat, it's like an amplifier. And there's so much load on the winch, if you ease it, it just makes huge noise, and they're sleeping right below that, especially if it's a runner winch, which is on the weather side, right above your head.
And these boats are really not designed with comfort in mind. Okay, no. Another very topical question, a very good one actually. Christopher Camaggio asks, how difficult is it to make the decision to pull back on the reins? Do the skippers ever communicate and say, look, we'll all slow down for the sake of safety? I mean, with the weather approaching, that's a very good question.
No. They're not going to talk to each other and say, hey, I'm going to slow down. Are you? They don't do that. No way.
Okay, so how difficult is it then for the skippers to take that on themselves?
Yes, every skipper, it's how confident you are in your crew, of course, and all the skippers are confident in their crew, but it's to finish first. First you got to finish. So at one stage you're going to say, okay, we might do fewer jibes because that's the risky part. And you can't slow down too much. You gotta. Speed is good. It's also safer, but the maneuvers they are harder. So that's up to every skipper's. That's their decision.
And I mean, these are some of the images coming off for Dongfeng race team. This was them jibing earlier on in the race at night, and you know this is when you've got to be careful. I mean, this is when you're thinking, okay, the jibe is the best thing to do, but of course. Energy, fatigue, darkness, cold, you know, all's weighing on your mind.
Yes, it's not easy. It's very difficult, very hard.
Okay, well, on the topic of jibing then, Jenny Vickery asked, do they take extra precautions during the jibes to prevent rig fatigue in these heavy seas? You know, do you jibe in a different way?
Not really. You have to wait for a surf, that's all. The faster you go, the less pressure there is in the sails. So the easier it is to jibe. And since these boats surf all the time, but at night it's more difficult because you can't see the waves. So it's all about feel, and it's the helmsman that's giving the call in the end, saying jibe, when he's happy with the speed, happy with the way the boat is heeling, and then he goes for it, and then it's all on.
I see, you mentioned surfing there. I mean, if you cast your mind back to leg 3, last time in the Southern Ocean, it was T-Max and Abel, and I remember they had that wipeout on the jibe, and I remember Chris Nicholson, who was on the helm at the time, said, we got a wave, I lost it, I didn't keep the good wave, and I should have bailed out. And
Yes.
it's that moment that's critical.
Yes, it is, and it does happen that if he's not happy, so he calls it, then he can bail and head up again, and then he's got to shout that really loud so they know that we're bailing on this jibe.
Okay, now we've got time for just one last question here from Beppy Jush, who asks, are you in the virtual ocean race? Are you doing the virtual ocean race? Do you even have time?
Well, I don't spend a lot of time on it, but, before I go to bed, I just have a look, and then if I want to jibe, I do a jibe, and if not, then that's it. I'm not going to wake up in the middle of the night for this. No way.
All right, well, there we go. Well, listen.
But I am in it, yes.
You're in it, and you're in it to win it as well. We do have a little bit of a league going here in the office. I won't tell you who's doing well and who's doing badly, because it's slightly embarrassing. Thank you very much, Peter, for joining us. Just another quick note. Some of you are asking about the ice exclusion zone, how the decision's made, what the penalties are. Join us tomorrow, Gonzalo Infante, the man at the heart of that decision who knows all about the safety implications. He was sweating that decision long and hard, and he will explain how it works and why it is that it's the right move for this weather forecast. We're back tomorrow. No quick fix in the morning, but another daily show at 1300 UTC. We will see you tomorrow.